Welcome back to part 2. We pick up where we left off, and some claim that Jesus paid the redemption price to the devil so that he would release us from slavery. Nonsense, absolute poppycock. It was not the devil that was offended. He got his way. It was God's justice and God's perfection that were offended. And it was God that demanded that ransom be paid. And Jesus paid in full the debt that we owe to God. Every single soul born on planet Earth, no matter what their social status or human birthright be they kings or paupers, are all ruined by sin. Yet you rarely ever hear that little word mentioned. It's a dirty word, and many take offence. It offends the natives, as you might say. If you have the audacity to even mention the word sin in some quarters, people look at you aghast. But sin is a failure to conform to God's law. Sin is lawlessness, is anarchy, is rebellion. It is to fall short of God's requirements. Sin is not just bad behaviour, but includes the motives of the heart, the thoughts of the mind, the words of the mouth, the conduct of one's life. Its sin affects everything that a person is. No person is unaffected by its extensive and tragic effects of sin. But what about the origin of sin? In Genesis 3 verse 1 we read, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord the God had made." Also in Ezekiel 28, and I quote verse 15, "Thou was perfect in the ways from the day that thou was created, and all iniquity is found in thee." Have you ever thought about Eve's dilemma? Surely she would have been alarmed had a snake spoken to her. Adam and Eve were very much closer to their relationships with nature than we are. Adam had named all the creatures, but conversation with and a relationship with an animal? Would it not have appeared startling to Eve to have a creature speaking to her as her equal, in fact, appearing to some degree as superior to her? Eve was not stupid. She knew the divine order of things. Therefore, if a snake approached her in such a way, she would have instantly been on guard, just as we would be if one of our pets started talking to us. She would have instinctively known that something was very wrong, because the natural course of events was being violated. But as you read the narrative, there's no element of surprise. She seems to engage in conversation with the serpent quite naturally. Indeed, we could almost say that there was a cordiality and familiarity between them. I think we can quite safely dispense with the idea that the serpent was a natural state. So where do we go from here? The word serpent is very revealing. In fact, there are 5 different derivatives, or 6 different derivatives. First, to hiss, to whisper, to incant, that's casting spells, to shine, to prognosticate, that's predict future events, and to move. Now, by any standard, that's a very comprehensive list of her characteristics, giving us a very good idea of the creature that is called the serpent. We can conclude from these facts that this creature was visible, it shone, it had vocal cords, it was capable of mobility, and it had special capabilities in that it was able to cast spells and predict future events. So Eve is dealing with a creature far removed from the humble snake as it is possible to get. There is an apparent no element of surprise from Eve. She appears cool, calm and collected and engages in conversation with the serpent. It seems almost natural. There was, as we have said, a cordiality, even familiarity between them. So who was it? What was it that Eve was in conversation with? Now this is far removed from the type of creature that we have become accustomed to, and that is believing that it was just a snake, because the name Narquish is used to define a celestial being, not snakes. Here are some more references we need to look at. In 2 Corinthians 11 verses 3 and 14, we read, first one, verse 3, "I fear lest by any means the serpent beguile you through his subtlety." The word serpent, the Greek word is ophis, which means the cunning one, the artful one, the malicious one. It equates to Narquosh in the Old Testament. Secondly, the contents bring to light who this creature was. Look at verse 14. "And no marvel, for Satan himself was transformed into the angel of light." So we are beginning to get a comprehensive picture of the creature that seduced Eve, because here he is described as the angel of light. And the meaning of light is to shine. So we have here, in Paul's words, the shining one, the Narquish. The visitor in the garden managed to enter the garden with no apparent difficulty. He passed through all the security locks, no problems at all. And despite the fact that there appears to be gates there protecting it, he passed through. To use a term, he had the password to the Garden of Eden. We'll come back to that in a moment when we consider the big cover-up.